If I could get everybody's attention for just a minute. My name is Matt Music. I'm currently president of the Rotary Club of Des Moines. We are sponsoring tonight's event, along with, just everybody that's here. We're here to celebrate Elaine and just a life well lived. I'm not sure if everybody understands the history with the Rotary Club of Des Moines and Elaine. But Elaine was part of 25 women who joined the Rotary Club of Des Moines in 1987 when Rotary began allowing women to be members of the Rotary organization. And she's been with us ever since. And Elaine, I have to do this just because I have a wall pet and it's great. But I was graduating high school in 1985. You were making that entrance in 1987, so I have so much respect for you and Hal. Hal and Elaine are center stage tonight, and we are so blessed to have you be part of the Rotary Club of Des Moines. And for those of you who aren't part of the Rotary Club of Des Moines, we're happy to entertain the idea of having you join. We are an organization of roughly 200 leaders across the Des Moines Metro, and have been doing the service above self projects, which is really the cornerstone of what Rotary is all about, for over 100 years in the city of Des Moines. First Rotary Club that was sanctioned or registered in the state of Iowa. So number 27 out of over 35,000 clubs across the planet. So long history, and Elaine and Hal are both a big part of the Rotary Club of Des Moines. We're very pleased to have you here, and let's take it away.
That's going to time out. As Matt said, I'm Hal Chase, and I was born in Des Moines, but I was raised in legally segregated Frankfort, Kentucky. Right. Can anybody not hear me?
I prefer the mic.
I'm not sure that this mic is on, but is it on? Is it?
How about now? Can you hear? No. Technology, I know. All right, speak loudly,
I will.
and then I'll get the mic on for Mrs. Estes.
Yeah.
Just, yeah.
So I mentioned why I'm here, basically. I learned, I still believe, that the relationship between so-called white and so-called black Americans is at the heart of this nation. And what we can do to go beyond race is what we ought to be doing. It's also timely because you may have read in your papers that the state of Florida has said it's illegal to teach African American history. So, there we are. Tonight's program begins with myself. We each get about 20 minutes, and much of what you're going to see came from this book that you ought to know about. It was created by 39 individuals, and only 2 of those people, the word editor, Bill Siley, the graphic designer, Susan Cope-Richford, we got grants for them to do that. Otherwise, all the authors, it was a labor of love. There's nothing else like this book in the United States of America. There are 20 chapters, Each one's a mini history of that topic, be it military or medicine, school, art, music, you name it. 20 chapters. Fully footnoted and indexed.
Wow.
And indexed. So what you see largely tonight is drawn from outside in. And it was published by the State Historical Society, our State Historical Society, okay? Because all of us who are involved in this, we subscribe to public history. And that means that for too long, history was about the 1%. Kings, emperors, you name it. This book is based on the 99%. So there you go. What's going to happen is I'm going to click, you'll see that go, and then you'll see the slide that tells you this program is about African American history in Iowa. I'm going to hit that one. You will hear a recorded narrative that tells you about what you're looking at. That will last 18 minutes, 17 seconds. So then Elaine will be on, and then there should be 20 minutes left for anybody and everybody to ask their question about what they have seen or what they feel is left out. There's sure to be some of that, sure as I'm standing here, and what have you. So you're all very, very welcome. I'm glad you're here. And here we go. And the lights can go out, and it's time for that. The lights in here, and they're in that little room back. Do you know where they are, Jen? Sue, can you turn out the lights now? As you did. There. Oh, look at that. I haven't seen, but we don't. This is recorded. We're good. I'm looking for the, up above on the screen, there should be play recorded.
Hit that, maybe at the end of the password?
No, not this is mine.
Okay.
Right sheet.
This might give you something.
It's a long password.
Yeah, that's just still a lot of, 3 of the bottom.
You must have a very long password.
I guess so. But
It's better than the same one like mine always just.
What do you need? My hands are still cold.
here we go.
Our universe has been evolving for billions of years. But we human beings, for only the past 66 million of the Cenozoic era known as the Age of Mammals, leading to the current generation of men and women like these, whose ancestors created a new nation in 1776, dedicated to the proposition that all men and women are created with equal rights to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. But they contradicted this ideal by participating in the transatlantic slave trade, cramming some 10 million men, women, and children below decks, taking them to the Americas, and selling them at public auctions like this one. York was one of their descendants, who helped Lewis and Clark explore the Louisiana Purchase from 1804 to 1806. Hence, Iowa became a territory in 1838, and a free territory the following year, when Iowa Chief Justice Charles Mason outlawed slavery with his ruling in the case of Ralph. Yet Dred Scott learned in 1857 that living on Iowa's free soil did not make him free. But the Dred Scott decision did not keep John or Governor from fleeing to Iowa for their freedom, as this $200 reward for them in Burlington proves. Many other enslaved men, women, and children, like those in this painting, escaped slavery on Iowa's Underground Railroad, shown in this map, with the help of conductors like James C. Jordan from Virginia, whose home and station still stands in West Des Moines, where he took in John Brown, the militant abolitionist, who during his flight across Iowa with a group of freedom seekers in 1859, recruited Edwin Coppock and 4 other young Iowans for his famous but unsuccessful raid on the federal arsenal at Harper's Ferry, Virginia in October. And the war came with its harvest of death, as Lincoln declared at Gettysburg, in which black soldiers like Preston Jackson and Henry Shealy, both buried in Des Moines Woodland Cemetery, served under this flag of the 60th Iowa Regiment of U.S. colored troops to give a new birth of freedom to a federal government that included these U.S. representatives and senator in 1868, the same year that Republican presidential candidate General U.S. Grant heralded Iowa as the bright radical star for being the first northern state to guarantee black men's right to vote. That same year, Alexander Clark Sr. sued, and Iowa Chief Justice Chester Cole ruled that Muscatine must admit Clark's daughter Susan to its elementary school. But the following year, white Iowans murdered 5 black men on the steamboat Dubuque. Yet Alexander Clark Jr. was not deterred and became the University of Iowa's first black graduate in 1879. Nor did it stop John Bud Fowler from pitching victories for Keokuk in 1885. 2 years before, Adrian Camp Anson of Marshalltown, top row behind the blackboard, led the movement to exclude blacks from the big leagues in 1887. But George Washington Carver successfully pursued higher education at Simpson College in Iowa State, where he earned bachelor's and master's degrees in botany. Good paying jobs attracted black and white men like these 3 to Buxton, a company-owned coal mining town in southeast Iowa from 1900 to 1922, where a black majority, including George and Alice Neal, bought nice clothes for themselves and their children, received good health care from black doctors like Edward A. Carter on the left, sent their children to integrated schools like this one, played on integrated baseball teams like the famous Buxton Wonders, and made marriages like this one of the Andersons and this one of the Doyles. In 1915, the Birth of the Nation film glorifying the Ku Klux Klan was released, causing S. Joe Brown, Keosauqua native, University of Iowa Phi Beta Kappa and law school cry. His wife, Sue Ann Wilson Brown of Oskaloosa, head of the Iowa Federation of Colored Women's Clubs, Harvey Ingram, editor of the Des Moines Tribune, and others to found Iowa's first NAACP branch in Des Moines. In 1917, our federal government broke the racial barrier in our Army Officer Corps by establishing black officer training camps at Fort Des Moines, where these Iowa men earned commissions in October, and these black doctors earned theirs in November. When World War I ended in November 1918, Dr. W.E.B. Du Bois, the voice of the NAACP, whose first wife, Nina Gomer, was from Cedar Rapids, urged these returning black veterans from France to return fighting to make America safe for democracy. This militancy and the great migration of African Americans out of the South during World War I, like these to Waterloo from Mississippi via the Illinois Central Railroad, was met by murderous white mobs like this one in Omaha during the Red Summer of 1919. Yet Dubuque University's 1920 Olympian, Saul Butler, struck blows against such vicious white racism with every one of his victories in track. Frederick Duke Slater of Clinton did likewise with his All-American play for Iowa's 1921 Big Ten championship team. But Iowa State's Jack Trice suffered fatal injuries because of it in 1923. In 1925, Mrs. Gertrude Rush, Charles Howard Sr., S. Joe Brown, James Morris Sr., and George H. Woodson established the National Bar Association in Des Moines, recently memorialized by this sculpture at 2nd and Grand. But a year later, this poster urged Klansmen to parade through downtown Des Moines, led by Police Commissioner John W. Jennings. The faith of congregations like Corinthian Baptist in Des Moines resisted such white racism. So did the music of the People's Institute Band of Keokuk. The armed self-defense of the Knoxville Men's Gun Club, the Brotherhood of these Elks seen outside their lodge in Waterloo, and the Sisterhood of these Eastern Star members in Marshalltown. But Black Iowans overcame white racism most of all with a love of families like Cornell Allen's in Ottumwa. Family, faith, solidarity, and self-defense also helped Black Iowans through the Great Depression in the 1930s. So did switching their political allegiance from the Republican to the Democratic Party due to President Franklin Roosevelt's New Deal programs, like the National Youth Administration, which hired these young Sioux City women. Jesse Owens' 4 gold medals in the 1936 Berlin Olympics helped too. But it was Joe Louis's 1938 first-round knockout of Nazi heavyweight champion Max Schmeling that shattered Hitler's claims of Germans as the master race. African Americans fought white racism at home, as well as Nazi white racism abroad during World War II. Striking blows in this double V campaign were Luther Smith of Des Moines, one of the famous Tuskegee Airmen. The 71,000 women, including these African American women who trained at Fort Des Moines to become WACs, and the tens of thousands who migrated from field to factory during World War II. Striking blows against white racism in Iowa after World War II were future Dr. Meredith Saunders of Mason City, who earned his Eagle Scout badge in 1945. These 6 U of I co-eds who integrated Courier Hall in the fall of '46. And World War II WAC veteran Edna Griffin and others who picketed with these signs outside Katz Drugstore in downtown Des Moines for refusing them ice cream cones in 1948. The same year that Iowa native, former vice president, and pioneer hybrid founder Henry A. Wallace ran for president with the slogan, "Jim Crow must go." Before the 1954 Brown versus State Board of Education Topeka decision by the Supreme Court, President Dwight Eisenhower appointed Archie Alexander of Des Moines governor of the American Virgin Islands. And Johnny Bright's All-American play for drink undermined racial discrimination every time he played. After Brown, Iowa's Fab Five took the Hawkeyes to the Final Four in 55 and 56, the same year that Dora Berry of Houston was elected Iowa's homecoming queen. That Waterloo native William Parker became Iowa's first black judge, and that Dr. Philip Hubbard of Des Moines became the University of Iowa's first black professor. From the 1950s to the 1970s, Ernest Speck Red changed hearts and minds every time and everywhere he played. And Irene Miles did likewise from the 1960s to the 1990s. In the 1960s, these roving ambassadors from Des Moines challenged white racism all over our nation with their Know Your Neighbor campaign. Tom Oppenberger of Shenandoah on the left did likewise as King's press secretary. In 1965, Dr. Julius Conner was appointed director of Des Moines Polk County Public Health Department, a position he held until retiring in 2015. Evelyn K. Davis founded Tiny Tots Daycare in 1966, the same year that Kalanchi Sadiq on the left and others founded the Des Moines Black Panther Party. That Des Moines attorney, Willie Glanton, Democrat, won an election to the Iowa's House of Representatives, and that Reverend James Thomas was elected Iowa's first black Methodist bishop. Far away in Vietnam, Dr. Vincent Lewis of Des Moines fought his own war against it, and barriers fell. In the 1970s, Miss Iowa, Cheryl Brown of Luther College, became the first black contestant in the Miss America pageant. Dr. Darwin Turner was hired to head the African American Studies Department at the University of Iowa. And James McPherson, the MacArthur Genius Award-winning author, joined the faculty of the Iowa Writers Workshop. Moreover, James Harris, Des Moines Middle School art teacher, became the first black president of the National Education Association. Eddie V. Easley became the first African American to win the Most Outstanding Educator at Drake. Jimmy and Lou Porter founded Iowa's first black-owned radio station, KBBG in Waterloo. And Elaine Graham Estes of Des Moines was promoted to director of the Des Moines Public Library. In the 80s, Dr. Percy Harris of Cedar Rapids became the first African American on our Board of Regents. Vivian Stringer became Iowa's women's basketball first black coach, and Bobby Douglas became Iowa State's first black wrestling coach. In the 90s, Democrat Preston Daniel was elected and re-elected Des Moines' first black mayor. Republican Lametta Wynn did likewise in Clinton. Monroe Colston was chosen to head the Greater Des Moines Foundation. Alfredo Parrish became recognized as Iowa's leading trial lawyer. And Mary Chapman was chosen to lead DMAC's urban campus. But it was Dr. Paula Mahone's left and Dr. Karen Drake's miraculous delivery of the McCoy Septuplets in '97 that put Iowa's African American history on our nation's front pages. Since 2000, Iowa's continued to have one of the highest disproportionate incarceration of blacks in the nation. Yet, Democrats Wayne Ford, Akayla Abdul-Samad, and Ruth Ann Gaines, all of Des Moines, won election and re-election to the Iowa House. In 2008, Barack Obama won the Iowa Democratic caucuses and the presidency, and he won them again in 2012. In 2015, Quentin Hart won the first of 4 terms as Waterloo's mayor, and Renee Hardman is in her 2nd term on the West Des Moines City Council. In 2019, Waterloo native Nicole Hannah-Jones launched the 1619 Project for the New York Times, and Deborah Ann Turner, both medical doctor and Juris Doctor from Mason City, won the presidency of the League of Women Voters. In 2022, Isaiah Knox of Des Moines won a seat in the Iowa Senate. And Mary Wells of Des Moines was elected Polk County Treasurer. But white racism remains in Iowa, as you see in this photograph of Creston High School students in 2019. And many still see themselves as either black or as white. We do not think about this, but instead applaud the thunderous baritone of Centerville native Simon Estes. Moving beyond racism means seeing each other as beautiful like these bridesmaids and flower girls, as classmates like these in Waterloo, teammates like these who took Drake to the Final Four in '69, comrades in arms like these two in Vietnam, and fellow human beings like Dr. William Harper and his patient in Keokuk, eliminating racism as well as polio. It means reaching out and going forward arm in arm to create the new people like the Nowers of Des Moines and the Washingtons of Knoxville. From the best of Africa, the best of Asia, the best of Europe, and the best of the Americas. So fill in the blank for race with American. Citizen of a nation dedicated to the belief that no one is born a bigot, that a mind is a terrible thing to waste, that God made all of us of one blood, and that the other, the outsider, is who we are on the inside. If we do, we'll be forever free from the exploitation of the transatlantic slave trade, the cruel brutality of American slavery, the injustice of the convict lease system, as well as the lie of white supremacy, and its vicious defense by lynching and by assassination. Such freedom will not come by the sword, but by living the truth in this young woman's eyes. That it's ordinary people like these young men and women who continue the struggle to shape who we are as a people and a nation, capable of unriddling the riddle of outside in, of declaring we are one people, and that now is the time still for all to see the murderous nature of man's most dangerous myth, the concept of race, live and in color, as Derek Chauvin's knees closed George Floyd's windpipe in Minneapolis on May 25th, 2020. Igniting worldwide protests like this one in Rome, leaving us the choice to live as brothers and sisters by the golden rule or die as fools. I think it's time for Elaine, is what, that's the plan.
I have to get my little bag of tricks to show.
Show and tell.
You want me to hold it? I thought I did turn it on.
Maybe you want a little chair to put stuff on?
Thank you so much for being here. It's fun to see a lot of longtime faces that are my friends, and welcome to all. One of the things that you saw in the presentation was the Jordan House in West Des Moines. And my good friend, Vicki Baker, who's here, Vicki, wave hand. Vicki is responsible for the restoration of the Jordan House. And she knows all about the history of West Des Moines. But thanks for being here. There were a couple of things that were shown that I sort of wanted to speak about. In the presentation, you saw Luther Smith, who was trained by Howard Gregory at our Des Moines airport. And Luther became a well-known pilot, and this is the plane that they flew. And the Red Tails were responsible for training, saving more World War II people. And that's what the Red Tail looked like. The other thing that I was going to tell you about that had a connection, Ida B. Wells, who Ida B. Wells, who was an educator and lived in Chicago. In the book, they talk about the people in Iowa City. And her stepdaughter lived in Iowa City, worked for the University of Iowa Library. So that's Ida B. Wells. I have all these little props that one of the other things in my Library of Congress magazine for January, February, and this woman who was a photographer and a fashion designer has a connection to Iowa. And so that's in our January, February issue of LC. In the program, you saw a photograph of one of the Dr. Harpers from Fort Madison, Iowa, and there, Dr. Harry Harper and his brother were medical doctors in Fort Madison, established their own offices and their clinic because they could not have patients in some of the other clinics and hospitals. And Dr. Harry Harper's grandson is Hill Harper, who's an author, has a degree in law and a degree in art, and was on the CBS station for many, many years. And when we had an event in Des Moines called I'll Make Me a World in Iowa, why Harry Hill was one of our guests at that time. He is now playing on the CBS station called The Good Doctor. He plays the administrator of the hospital where the good doctor said. Oh. As I said, Hill was born in Iowa City because his dad was taking his medical training there. And Hill was born in Iowa City, so that's his Des Moines connection. The other thing that I would point out to you, stamps come out annually in February, and they are called the Black Heritage stamps. The current one that just came out in February is Ernest Gates, and he is an author of many books that have been very successful in his career. Ernest J. Gaines was born in Louisiana in 1933, died in Louisiana in 2018, and his notable books and awards have been from the humanities and the arts. So if you go to buy stamps, buy them. There is an African American Civil War museum in Washington.